Her brother-in-law touched her in the dark. Imagine being trapped in your own home, a place meant for safety, only to find the very people you trust become your worst nightmare. What would you do if your brother-in-law crossed a line so unforgivable the truth would change everything? You won't believe what happens next. Luyana stepped off the bus into Zombala city with a heart full of hope. Everything around her felt like a different world. Cars honked endlessly, glass buildings stretched into the clouds, and people walked fast, dressed sharp, eyes on their phones. She clutched her small bag tight, her wedding ring shining under the sun. Obadel, her new husband, had promised her a better life in the city. He said she'd never have to worry again, and when she saw the mansion, her breath caught. The house was larger than any building she'd ever seen. White walls, marble steps, iron gates that opened with a remote. Guards nodded as they passed. The air smelled like money. Inside, everything sparkled. Chandeliers dangled from the ceilings like golden fruits. The tiles were so clean they reflected her feet. She met Obadele's mother, Madame Tuella, a woman with perfect posture and eyes that scanned her from head to toe. The woman had muttered. A village girl. Obadele laughed it off. She'll adjust, he said. Luyana smiled shyly. She was determined to prove she belonged. Days passed. The city life was loud, fast, and confusing. Luyana tried to learn everything. How to speak softly like the rich women at parties. How to walk in heels. How to eat spaghetti without slurping. But deep inside, she missed the simplicity of Ngalamu. In the village, people smiled. Here, they stared. Obadele was busy. He left early, came back late, always on calls, always distracted. Don't worry, he said. You're safe here. She believed him, until the day Nsebo returned. It was during breakfast. Madame Tuella announced it proudly. Nsebo is coming back from France. Finally, my golden boy. When he walked in, Luyana saw a man full of charm. Tall, handsome, dressed like a celebrity. His accent was smooth. His smile lingered too long. When he hugged her, it lasted a second too much. She felt a chill, but said nothing. Maybe she was imagining it. That night, Luyana lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Outside, the city lights blinked. Inside, the silence was thick. She was in a palace, but her heart felt heavy. She had dreamed of love, laughter, peace. Instead, the mansion echoed with cold footsteps and closed doors. No one warned her that the worst monsters don't live in the wild. Sometimes, they live in the next room. Sometimes, they smile and call you sister. And in Zombala, behind every glass wall, some secrets were screaming for air. Luyana stood in the hallway when Nsebo first walked through the mansion's grand doors. He was everything she expected a man from France to be, dressed in sharp clothes, wearing dark shades indoors, and smiling like he owned the air around him. He hugged Madame Tuella tightly and slapped Obadele's back with brotherly love. Then his eyes landed on Luyana. His smile widened. So you're the village bride? He said, reaching out to take her hand. She forced a smile, but her fingers went cold. His handshake was firm, too firm. At first, it was small things. The way he always found a reason to be near her. The way he sat too close on the couch, even when there was plenty of space. How he always seemed to be watching her when she wasn't looking. Once, she caught him standing by her bedroom door at night. He smiled and said, just passing by. Luyana mentioned it to Obadele. He chuckled, brushing it off. Nsebo jokes too much. He's harmless. He treats everyone like that. Don't take it personal. But she did take it personal. She wasn't imagining the way her skin crawled when Nsebo entered a room. He laughed too hard at her soft jokes. He complimented her outfits in ways that made her stomach twist. She started locking her door at night. She began avoiding the living room when she heard his voice echo through the house. One afternoon, she was alone in the kitchen, washing fruits. She didn't hear him come in. He stood too close behind her. Need help? He whispered. She jumped. The knife nearly slipped from her hand. I'm fine, she said quickly, not turning around. His breath touched her neck. You don't have to be scared of me, Luyana. We're family. His voice was soft, but his eyes weren't. She didn't answer, just kept slicing apples with trembling hands. Later that night, she told Madame Tuella. The woman didn't blink. He's been away from home too long. You misunderstand his behavior. He wouldn't dare. The next day, Nsebo was more careful. He smiled politely in front of everyone, but when they were alone, his eyes burned through her like fire behind glass. Luyana started sleeping with her phone under her pillow. She kept a chair by the door. She stopped wearing certain clothes around the house. And still, The tension grew thicker, and Sabo never touched her. Not yet. But his presence pressed down on her spirit like a weight she couldn't shake. And every time she spoke up, the answer was the same. He's harmless. But even the brightest house can hide the darkest shadow. And Luyana could feel it. The shadow was moving closer. Rain poured heavily outside, drumming against the windows like angry fingers. The mansion was silent, the kind of silence that felt too heavy, too still. Luyana had just drifted into sleep when she felt something cold brush against her leg. At first she thought it was part of the blanket, but then a hand, a real hand. It crept under the sheets, slow and searching. Her eyes snapped open in the dark. Her breath caught in her throat. She froze, too terrified to scream. She turned sharply. The figure beside her moved fast, slipping off the bed, a shadow in the night. She couldn't see the face, only the flash of movement and a thick scent of cologne left behind, sharp and familiar. Her heart pounded as she grabbed her phone and switched on the light. The room was empty. The door had been unlocked. She jumped up and ran to lock it, her hands shaking so hard the key fumbled in her grip. Tears spilled as she leaned against the door, sliding down slowly to the floor. Her body was cold, but her skin burned with fear. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of what just happened. But deep down, she already knew. That scent, that quiet step, that boldness. It was Nsebo. She wanted to scream. She wanted to call Obadeli, but it was past midnight, and he wasn't home. Again. He had said he had a business dinner. He always had dinners lately. Luyana opened her phone, hovered over his name, but stopped. What would she say? That someone came into her room and touched her in the dark, that she didn't see the face, but she knew? She sat awake the rest of the night, lights on, heart racing. Every creak of the mansion made her flinch. She kept the blanket around her like a shield, but it couldn't protect her. Nothing could. Not here. Not in this house where danger wore perfume and smiled at breakfast. In the morning, she tried to act normal. At the table, Nsebo laughed and joked with Madame Tuella. He looked fresh, clean-shaven, sipping tea like he hadn't snuck into someone's room the night before. Luyana couldn't eat. Her hands trembled as she lifted her cup. His eyes met hers. He smiled. She lowered her gaze quickly. Madame Tuella asked if she was feeling sick. Luyana shook her head. What could she say? That her brother-in-law had tried to touch her while she slept, that he had slipped out like a coward and left her terrified in her own bed. She knew the answer already. No one would believe her. Not in this house, not in this city, not when the one she feared wore fine suits and spoke French. So she said nothing, but something inside her had changed. A flame lit quietly in the corner of her soul. She didn't know how or when, but she knew. One day, this silence would end. As the sun rose over Zombala, painting gold across the marble floors of the mansion, Luyana sat across from Obadele in their private lounge. Her voice was quiet, but firm. Obadele, someone came into my room last night. Someone touched me. She kept her eyes on the floor, afraid to see his reaction. He didn't even pause. He looked at her half smiling and said, "You're being paranoid. This is Zombala, not a village ghost story." Her heart dropped. She looked up slowly, eyes wide with disbelief. "I'm not joking. I woke up. I felt a hand. It wasn't a dream." Obadele leaned back, casually sipping his juice. "Then lock your door next time," he said. "You probably left it open. This house is huge. You probably imagined something." His tone was light, dismissive, like she was telling a silly tale. She felt like she was sinking. Her voice broke. "I didn't imagine it." He didn't respond. He picked up his phone and scrolled through messages as if the conversation was over. Later that day, Luyana found the courage to approach Madame Tuella. She was arranging flowers in the hallway, her long fingers moving with precision. "Mama," Luyana whispered, "something happened last night. I think someone entered my room while I was sleeping." The older woman barely flinched. "You think?" she asked calmly. "Maybe you had a dream." Luyana shook her head. "No, I was awake. I felt—" But Madame Tuella raised her hand, cutting her off. "You're new here. You're still adjusting. The city has noise, stress, things you're not used to. Zombala can play tricks on the mind. Don't embarrass yourself with wild thoughts. Focus on your marriage." And just like that, the door was closed. No one believed her. Luyana walked back to her room, her steps slow, her chest heavy. The walls of the mansion that once looked grand now felt like prison bars. She stared at the polished floor, the sparkling lights, the silent cameras on every corner. All the beauty around her felt fake, like painted lies hiding rot underneath. She sat on the edge of her bed, gripping the bedsheet tightly. Her voice was gone, her truth buried under their laughter, their excuses, their polished smiles. Nsebo passed her in the hallway that evening. He didn't touch her. He didn't speak. He only smirked, like a man who knew no one would stop him. Luyana wanted to scream, but what good was screaming when no one listened? She looked at her reflection in the mirror. Her eyes had changed. There was fear, but also fire. She knew she couldn't trust them. Not her husband, not her mother-in-law, not this house. If she wanted safety, she'd have to find it herself. If she wanted justice, she'd have to fight for it alone. But one thing was clear. She would never stay silent again. Luyana barely slept anymore. Every night, it was something new. A knock, a shadow, a soft voice just outside her door. The first time, Nsebo came with a fake smile. "I forgot my charger in your room," he said. She opened the door an inch, confused. "I don't have your charger," she replied. But he leaned closer, eyes sharp and lips too friendly. "Maybe it fell under the bed. Let me check." She slammed the door shut. The next night, he knocked again. "Do you have painkillers? My head is killing me." She didn't answer. She stayed frozen, staring at the door, her heart pounding like drums. He stood there for minutes, breathing on the other side, then walked away. Another time, he said he heard a noise. "I thought someone screamed. Just checking you're okay." He smiled when he said it, like it was a game. But it wasn't, not to her. Each knock made her heart beat faster. Each excuse sent a chill down her spine. And Nsebo's eyes never blinked enough. His smiles were always a little too wide. His presence made the air feel heavy. She started locking her door with a chair every night. She placed shoes and books against it so any movement would wake her. But fear didn't need doors. It followed her into sleep, into her dreams. She woke up sweating, sometimes gasping, sometimes crying. Her world had turned into a silent prison. She didn't feel safe anywhere in that house. Then one morning, while folding laundry in the corridor, she met Tande. Tande was young, just 17, but her eyes looked older, tired and careful. She was always quiet, moving fast, doing chores like a shadow. But that morning, Tande brushed against Luyana's arm and whispered so softly it was almost a breath. "You're not the first." Luyana froze. Her hand trembled. "What?" she whispered back. Tande didn't look at her. She kept folding the bedsheet. "He comes at night, pretends it's innocent, but it's not. I know that look in his eyes." Luyana's throat went dry. "He did it to you too?" Tande nodded once, eyes still down. "Did you tell anyone?" Tande's lips tightened. "They don't care. They protect him. They told me I was lying, that I was just a maid looking for attention." Luyana felt sick, so it wasn't just her. This house had secrets, whispers in the walls, girls suffering in silence while everyone else looked away. She wasn't crazy. She wasn't imagining things. Tande glanced around, then said quietly, "Be careful. He gets bolder when he thinks no one's watching." Luyana nodded slowly. Now, she wasn't just scared. She was angry. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a pattern, and she had to find a way to stop it before it destroyed her. Luyana's hands trembled as she held the small voice recorder in her palm. It felt light, but it carried the weight of her hope, her fear, her truth. She had spent days planning this. Every step, every detail. She was done being scared. That night, she carefully slid the recorder under her bed, pressing the button until the red light blinked once, then disappeared. It was ready. She left her door slightly open, just enough for someone to think it was safe to sneak in. Then she waited. Hours passed. The silence was loud. Her heart pounded with every tick of the wall clock. Midnight came and went. She didn't sleep. She didn't blink. At exactly 2:13 a.m. she heard it, the soft creak of her door pushing open. A pause, then slow footsteps on the tile floor. "Luyana," and Nsebo's voice floated through the darkness. Low, confident. "You know you want it." She stayed still, her fists clenched under the blanket, her breath slow. She let him come closer. One step, two, then, click. She flicked on the light, her phone already recording. The flashlight caught his face like a spotlight. His smile disappeared. He froze. "Smile for the camera, Nsebo," she said, voice steady, sharp. For a second, he didn't move. His eyes darted to the door. Then he bolted, stumbling into the hallway like a thief caught red-handed. Luyana didn't chase him. She calmly stood, locked her door, and sat down. Her body shook, but not from fear. This time, it was from power. She had proof. No one could deny it now. At dawn, she didn't run away. She didn't cry. She dressed in silence, packed a small bag, and walked into the living room where Madame Tuela sat sipping tea. Obadele was there too, half asleep in his robe. "I'm going to the court," Luyana said, her voice cutting through the room like glass. They looked up, confused. "With what evidence?" Madame Tuela scoffed. Luyana pulled out her phone and pressed play. Nsebo's voice echoed loud and clear. "You know you want it." Silence fell, thick, uncomfortable. She didn't wait for their reaction. She turned and walked out the front door, not as a victim, but as a woman who refused to stay silent. The street outside was still dark, the city barely waking up, but Luyana had never felt stronger. The shadows had whispered long enough. Now it was her voice the world would hear. When Luyana stepped into the courtroom with Achenyo by her side, the air around her felt different. It was no longer heavy with fear. It was sharp with purpose. Achenyo, bold and brilliant, was known across Quito for standing up for women silenced by power. She reviewed the recordings, the photos, the bruised voice notes, and said only one thing: "We fight." The media caught wind almost immediately. Within days, the headlines exploded. Zombala billionaire's son accused of assault by village wife. The story wasn't just news. It was wildfire. Reporters camped outside the mansion gates. Cameras flashed like lightning every time someone stepped out. The once silent corridors of the mansion echoed with tension. Obadele came to her with tears and panic. "Please," he whispered, "just end it. He's my brother." She stared at him. "He wasn't your brother when he came into my room." Next, Madame Tuvala showed up, dressed in all white, as if peace could be bought. She offered Luyana a fat brown envelope. "We know this is hard for you," she said sweetly. "Take this and move on. We'll handle Nsebo." Luyana looked her in the eye and said quietly, "I don't want money. I want justice." The courtroom was packed on the first day of trial. Half the city came to watch. Some came for gossip. Others came in hope. Nsebo arrived wearing a suit and fake confidence. But when Achenyo played the recording, the courtroom went silent. There it was, his voice, his whisper, the sickening words, "You know you want it." The judge leaned forward. The crowd gasped. Nsebo's smile cracked. Achenyo didn't stop there. She brought in Tande, the maid, who bravely told her own story. Another girl stepped forward too, then another. Nsebo wasn't just a one-time monster. He was a pattern, a predator. And now, the web of silence was torn apart. Obadele lowered his head in shame. Madame Tuela didn't return to court after that day. Luyana stood strong through it all. She didn't flinch. She didn't cry in public. She walked in and out of court like a woman reborn. When the verdict came, the judge's words echoed like thunder. "Nsebo Mwamba, guilty." The crowd clapped. Some wept. Luyana just closed her eyes, as if finally breathing after years underwater. She didn't just win a case, she sparked a movement. Other women in Zombala began speaking up. New laws were proposed, and in the heart of the city, people whispered a new name, not of Nsebo, the billionaire's son, but Luyana, the girl from Nyalamu, who brought down a mansion with the truth. Justice had awakened, and it carried her name. The courtroom was packed. Not a single seat was empty. People stood at the back, some peeking through windows just to catch a glimpse of the storm brewing inside. Reporters whispered into microphones. Cameras clicked. The city of Zombala had never seen anything like it. This wasn't just a trial. It was a reckoning. The judge called order. A moment later, the audio recording began to play. Silence fell. Then came Nsebo's voice, low and sickening. "You know you want it." The words echoed across the room like a slap. Luyana sat still, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Across from her, Nsebo shifted in his chair. His face twitched, but he tried to smile. "That could be anyone," he said, voice shaking. "It's not clear. It's fake. She's making this up." A murmur rolled through the courtroom. The judge raised his hand. Silence. Achenyo, calm and fierce, stood. "Your Honor, that voice is no mystery, and the woman who recorded it is right here." The judge looked at Nsebo. "Do you have anything to say before I decide?" Everyone turned to him. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Then Luyana stood. Her voice was steady, clear, no fear left. "Yes, Your Honor, I have something to say." The judge nodded. "Go on." She faced the crowd, her eyes scanning the room filled with strangers and cameras and judgment. "I came to this house as a wife. I thought I was joining a family, but I was treated like I didn't matter. like my body was furniture, like I was just decoration, but I am not a thing. I'm not a shadow, and I will not be touched in the dark like a ghost. Gasps broke out, then a single clap, then more. The courtroom erupted in applause. The judge banged his gavel. Order, order. But the energy had shifted. The storm had broken. No one saw Luyana as the quiet village girl anymore. She was a woman who stood tall in the face of money, fear, and power, and she didn't flinch. The judge looked at her with a new kind of respect. He turned to Nsebo. This court will not protect predators. Not today. The trial continued. But the moment was already written in history. That day, the city saw what courage looked like. It didn't wear a suit. It didn't sit behind a desk. It stood in the middle of the courtroom, with fire in its voice and pain in its past, refusing to be silent, and her name was Luyana. When the judge read the sentence, 18 years, there was silence at first. Then a loud gasp filled the courtroom, and Nsebo's face went pale, his charm, his smooth talk, his arrogance, gone. The guards moved in quickly and took him away in handcuffs. He didn't say a word. The man who once smirked at Luyana, who crept into her room in the dark, now walked out with his head down and his mask shattered. Outside the courthouse, the world was watching. News outlets broadcasted every second. Social media exploded. Hashtags trended across the country. People reposted the courtroom clip of Luyana's words. "I will not be touched in the dark like a ghost." Those words became a battle cry. Young women began sharing their stories. The silence had cracked. Obadele, once seen as the golden son of Zombala's elite, faced a different storm. People dragged him online for laughing at Luyana, for doing nothing when she begged for help. His business meetings were cancelled. Friends stopped calling. People now whispered when he walked by, pointing at him not with respect, but with shame. He had let evil grow in his own home, and now the city saw it clearly. As for Madame Tuella, the once respected face of Women First Zombala, her charity foundation crumbled overnight. Sponsors pulled out. Volunteers quit. Her face disappeared from billboards. People said, how can she help women when she silenced her own daughter-in-law? The damage was done. Her empire of fake kindness came crashing down. But Luyana stood tall. She walked out of that courtroom with her head high. The press chased her, but she didn't run. She didn't hide. She held Tande's hand, the young maid who had suffered silently too, and together they faced the cameras. They didn't need to speak. Their strength spoke louder than any words. People didn't see her as a victim anymore. They saw a woman who fought back, who stayed when it would have been easier to leave, who demanded justice, not money. She became a symbol, not just for herself, but for every woman who had been told to stay quiet, for every girl who had been ignored, for every wife who had been told to just lock the door. Luyana went back to Ngalamu for a while, not to hide, but to rest. The villagers welcomed her like a queen. Even the elders praised her courage. Mothers pointed her out to their daughters and said, "Be brave like her." The mask had fallen, not just in Nsebo's, but the whole family's. And in the place of lies, truth stood tall. Luyana didn't just win a case. She lit a fire that could not be put out. And Zombala City would never be the same again. A year after the trial, Luyana stood in front of a large crowd, the sun setting behind her, casting a golden light over her new mission. She had come a long way from the terrified woman in a dark bedroom. Now, she was the founder of the Light Foundation, an organization built to help women who were still trapped in the shadows. She spoke with a confidence that radiated from within. The journey had been long, but the woman who once whispered in fear had become the voice that demanded change. She started by building shelters, safe spaces where women could find refuge and rebuild their lives. Each shelter was designed not just for safety, but for healing. Women who arrived were met with a team ready to listen, support, and empower them. Luyana knew what it felt like to be trapped in silence, and she was determined to make sure no woman ever felt alone again. The foundation didn't just offer physical shelter, it offered a chance to heal, to speak, and to rise above what had been done to them. Luyana didn't stop at just building shelters. She held seminars, reaching out to communities across Zombala. She educated people about the importance of recognizing abuse and taking action before it was too late. Her voice was everywhere, on TV, in newspapers, and in the hearts of those who needed her the most. The Light Foundation became a beacon of hope in a city that once whispered her name in secret. Tande, the young maid who had once been too scared to speak, was now by her side, a pillar of support. She had found her own strength, and together, They made an unstoppable team. Tande wasn't just a survivor. She was a leader in her own right. She had learned from Luyana's example and now stood proudly as a voice for the voiceless, helping others who had faced what she once did. The posters for the Light Foundation spread across the city, bold, inspiring words. They tried to touch me in the dark, but I found the switch, and now I bring light. It wasn't just a slogan, it was a message to the world, a reminder that darkness could be overcome, that silence could be broken, and that those who had been hidden could rise. It was a promise to every woman who had suffered in silence that they would no longer be ignored. In Zombala, Luyana was no longer the shy girl who had once been afraid to speak out. She had become a woman whose voice was heard, whose strength was undeniable. People looked to her not just for inspiration, but for guidance. She had faced the darkness and brought herself, and others, into the light. She had shown the world that one woman, standing tall and unafraid, could change everything. Luyana's story was no longer about a victim's pain. It was about a survivor's strength. And as the light of a new dawn broke over Zombala, everyone knew that Luyana had found her purpose, and in doing so, she had found her own freedom. Luyana's journey is one of unimaginable strength, resilience, and the power of speaking up. She was once a woman trapped in the darkness, but she fought back, and in doing so, she became a beacon of hope for so many others. Her story shows us that no matter how dark the night may seem, we all have the power to turn on the light, to rise, to speak, and to make a difference. If Luyana's story has touched you, made you think, or inspired you in any way, remember that you too have the power to make a difference in someone's life. Whether it's through your support, your voice, or your actions, you can help bring light to the dark corners where silence and fear once lived. If you believe in the strength of women, the power of justice, and the importance of standing up against abuse, take a moment to like this video and share it with others. Share Luyana's message of hope, because the more people who hear it, the more lives we can change together. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Your support means the world to us, and together we can continue to spread powerful stories that uplift and inspire. Thank you for being a part of this journey. Keep shining your light, and never forget that your voice matters.